Welcome and good afternoon. This is Commish Orr, and I appreciate you being here. Today we're going to take a look at the recent Hall of Fame announcements. Three new players entered the Hall of Fame, the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame, so we're going to be taking a look at them, along with the two that were also added, what was it, a month ago or so. And we're going to take a look at how deserving they are based on stats. Of course, Hall of Fame also takes into account, integrity and all of that, all of the intangible stuff. But we're going to take a look at just based on stats, how these players stack up. And then the second part of the video, I'll take a look at how this impacts my Payoff Pitch POPs League tabletop baseball project that I have going on. So, but first, let's take a look at the Hall of Famers. We had three new Hall of Famers, as you can see here: Ichiro Suzuki, CC Sabathia, and Billy Wagner were inducted into the Hall of Fame. They join Dick Allen and Dave Parker, who were brought in by the classic baseball era vote, I should say. And they'll join. They of course, these three will join them as the 2025 Hall of Fame inductees. So I guess we'll just start in order of appearance here. And first one here is Ichiro. Ichiro missed out on being a unanimous inductee by one vote, and which is crazy to me. But what can you say? Pretty much a no-brainer. I mean, he was Rookie of the Year, 10-time Gold Glove. I mean, you can see 10-time All-Star, 3-time Silver Slugger. He won the batting title twice. He was an All-Star MVP. He was a regular MVP over his career. And, he earned over 3,000 hits just in his major league career. Keep in mind, he came here when he was 27. If you added that to his Japanese league hit total, he would be number one if you combined those two. But just in the MLB, he had over 3,000 hits. And so, amazing player, very deserving, no-brainer, exactly what you would expect. And if we look at, I like to compare players using, a combination of factors. You can do wins above replacement or WAR. You can do, what I like to do is look at JAWS. JAWS takes into account not only, if you hover over this, you can see not only a combination of their career WAR, but their 7-year peak totals as well, so that you can get real comparisons by position of players, because that's the other thing to consider is the position these players were playing at the time. Some positions are higher offense than others. So, for example, shortstop historically has been a lower offensive position. So it would be hard to compare a shortstop to a right fielder, for example, when you have Babe Ruth and Hank Aaron here at the top. But if we take a look at the right fielders, and Ichiro is considered a right fielder here, of course, Ichiro comes in at number 21 all time in wins above replacement. If you look at his 7-year peak, he rises to 15th. And then if you look at JAWS, which kind of factors in both of those totals, you see he's 17th in that as well. And if you look at just Hall of Famers, you can see that the top 13 are Hall of Famers. Joe Jackson, of course, not eligible. And then you see Tony Gwynn just below. Dwight Evans is not in the Hall of Fame, but is right there. Ichiro, he's above players like Dave Winfield or Vlad Guerrero, who are already in the Hall. Very, very much deserving, as I said. He didn't have the power totals that some of these other players have, but he was a hit machine. So there he is at number 17. Secondly, we have CC Sabathia, dominant left-handed pitcher, Cy Young winner, 6-time All-Star. He won the World Series with the Yankees in 2009. He was American League Championship Series MVP. Played in the American League, of course, with Cleveland and New York. But, over 250 wins, is one total over 3,000 strikeouts. I think he's one of only a handful of left-handers that has over 3,000 strikeouts, maybe three or four. So again, very, very deserving, I think, especially when you compare him to left-handed starters. And if we look at the starting pitcher totals, like I've just looked at for the right fielders, obviously there's a lot more pitchers here than right fielders to weed through. But I think CC is, there he is at number 55. Number 55. So a lot of Hall of Famers below him here in the count. And then we have a couple of non-Hall of Famers above him still. A good handful of them. Some of them, of course, are currently playing, like Justin Verlander, Clayton Kershaw, or Zach Greinke, who hasn't retired yet. And then you have players like, David Cone is slightly above him. Louis Tiant is in there. Kevin Brown. But especially if we were to filter this by left-handers, he would rise up the ranks pretty quickly if we did that. So again, very deserving. There is, of course, the Jaws total here, which I believe will, if we go down a little bit here, and I probably passed him here, but let's see what his Jaws rating is, or where he ranks with that. Okay, he falls to 72 if we look at Jaws, but still above Don Sutton or Early Wynn, Sandy Koufax, above Sandy Koufax, Whitey Ford, Burley Grimes. So still right in the thick of things. And again, if we narrowed this down to left-handed starters, he would be higher than he is here. So again, I feel pretty deserving. 3,000 strikeouts, just an incredible career. And so there he is. Next, we go to Billy Wagner. Of course, a dominant closer. Relief pitchers have a little harder time maybe stacking up because they didn't obviously pitch as many innings overall. But again, someone I feel is very deserving. 7-time All-Star. And if we look at the relief pitchers, that handful is that list is pretty short. Pretty short. He would be number 14 in wins above replacement in that list, just below Trevor Hoffman, but above Raleigh Fingers or Bruce Sutter, for example. If we go Jaws again for him, he's 20th, but they also have a reliever Jaws because some relievers were really mostly, they started half their career, for example, and only relief pitched, part of the time. And we just look at the R Jaws, which kind of factors that in. He rises all the way to 6th. So he's number 6 in terms of what we'd call pure relievers on the list. And of course, people like Lee Smith drop down a little bit. Raleigh Fingers, I mean, those guys started some in their career. And so that's what we see for him. Again, I think very deserving player there. And not too surprising that he is got inducted. I've already done a video on Dick Allen. He was MVP Rookie of the Year, 7-time All-Star. He had a little bit of a shorter career than maybe some guys, 15-year career. He stopped when he was 35. And as I said, I've already done a video on his struggles, the impact of his off the field and that kind of thing, and what some may question his integrity and team being a team player and that kind of thing. Already covered that in a video, but I think if you look at just his pure stats, very deserving of being in the Hall of Fame based on his pure stats. And in his case, he's in the third baseman category, and he's number 17 here among third basemen, above Jimmy Collins or some of the older guys, Pie Traynor, George Kell, that kind of thing. He'd be this is wins above replacement, of course. If we do just his peak years, he rises to 10th on that list. If we go the peak 7 years. And again, if we look at the Jaws, he's 17th. 17th here. And again, I've already covered that and why I think he's pretty deserving of being in the Hall of Fame as well. Of course, he played more than just third base over his career, and so that's where he stands. Then we have Dave Parker, of course, MVP, seven-time All-Star, Silver Slugger, Gold Gloves, batting titles. Again, great player, absolute great player, and I believe pretty deserving as well. And if we go back to right fielders, since that's where Parker lands in the list, we see he is. Where is Dave Parker? There he is, 54th actually. So he's a little bit down on the list if we compare just right fielders. Harold Baines is below him, is in the Hall. Just a couple of Hall of Famers actually below him if we do wins above replacement. He's down there, but taking a look at Jaws once again. Let's see, where is Parker now? If we take a look at Jaws, here he is 42nd, so he rises a little bit if we look at the Jaws, which is 7 peak year combined with his career. He's right here, number 42, with just right fielders, of course. So again, very, very deserving, I think. I don't think any of the 5 guys I would say are shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame or anything like that. One could argue some of the players that didn't get inducted, how deserving they were. But these, I just want to kind of take a look at the 5 guys here that we have, and kind of compare them. You can also go to Baseball Reference and go to the bottom of their page to see some of their the comparisons of them to the average Hall of Famers. So black ink and gray ink take into account how many times they've won titles and that kind of thing. And his black ink, the average Hall of Famer is 27, and he's right there at 26. This is Dave Parker I'm talking about. Gray ink, he's 145. The average Hall of Famer is 144, so he's right there above. And again, the Hall of Fame monitor itself, likely Hall of Famer should be 100 or above, and he's at 125. So again, I think pretty deserving if we look at it that way as well. He's right there in the mix with other Hall of Famers. And if we do the same thing with Dick Allen, come to the bottom here, and you see he's right in line in terms of the black ink. He's above for the gray ink. And then Hall of Fame monitor, he's right there at the line with 99 out of 100, 100 being a likely Hall of Famer. So he's right there on the border if we look at this. But again, I've gone into a video to kind of show you why I think that that he is deserving based on OPS and that kind of thing as well. Again, relievers are a little bit tougher to compare. If we look at him compared to all pitchers, he's only a 31. The average Hall of Famer is 185, but the Hall of Fame monitor has him at 107, because that's comparing him mostly to other relievers rather than overall pitching. So again, right there in the mix, I think very deserving. Just since I've done it for the others, I'll do it for CC now. And you can see CC now, he's a little bit below in black ink, a little bit below in gray ink, but the Hall of Fame monitor still has him above the 100 that would be a likely Hall of Famer at 128. So right there in the mix of things, I think, for him. Finally, Ichiro, if we're looking at those totals as well, well above in black ink, right on the line for gray ink. Hall of Fame monitor at 235, and a likely is 100, so way above for that. Very, very deserving, and should have been a unanimous decision, but wasn't. All right, so that's just a recap of the Hall of Fame crop that has come in. And I also wanted to take a look at how that's going to impact a tabletop project that I have, the Payoff Pitch League, that I'm doing right now. And this league has, if you watch my videos, you've heard me say this a million times, but for those of you who are new that may not know how this league works, I have, using Payoff Pitch Baseball, I have 3 teams in each league, American and National, of Hall of Famers, and 1 team of great players not in the Hall of Fame. So there's 4 teams in each league, Three of those four teams Hall of Famers, one team non-Hall of Famers that are still great players. And so I had five players joining the Hall of Fame, and I was going to see how that impacted, or show you how that impacted the leagues. Detroit is the non-Hall of Fame American League team, and so they lost Dick Allen, for example, and they lost Ichiro. So Ichiro and Dick Allen used to be on Detroit. I went to the lowest rated, in terms of JAWS and other metrics, lowest rated player on the team in that position. And in the case of the American League, it was Goose Goslin. So Goose Goslin is a Hall of Famer. However, he was the lowest man on the totem pole. And so Ichiro joined the Boston Splinters in right field and took Goslin's spot. So Goslin is out of the league, and Ichiro is now on Boston. He was on Detroit. He joins Boston. Boston's only other right fielder is Harold Baines. And so actually Ichiro has done so great this year that he's slotted in into the lineup as a starter for Boston. So I think that was the only change for Boston. Oakland didn't have any changes. New York. So CC Sabathia was not in the league because he was not considerably better than the other Detroit pitchers. These are non-Hall of Famers: Roger Clemens, Frank Tanana, David Cohn, Brett Saberhagen, Dave Stieb, as kind of their starters. So CC was not in the league. However, after he joined the Hall of Fame, he bumped out Jesse Haynes is in the National League. He bumped out an American League pitcher here, and I'm not going to be able to remember off the top of my head who that was, but he joins the New York Swats. And Lefty Gomez. Lefty Gomez was on the New York Swats. He was the lowest rated Hall of Famer that was still in the league in terms of pitching. So he leaves the league, and CC joins the New York Swats here, and will be slotted in as one of their starting pitchers. But he's not been in the league before, so he's going to be added here where Lefty Gomez was. Finally, Detroit. So again, I mentioned they lost Dick Allen and they lost Ichiro. And who took their place? Well, we have at third base we had Dick Allen was actually a first baseman based on his card, because I took the best, quote unquote, best season, because that's how Payoff pitch cards the players. This was before the Legends and Bust set came out, and the best season for Dick Allen was a first baseman season, where he played first base primarily. So he left Detroit, and I should have mentioned he joined. He joined New York as their first baseman here with Rod Carew. And Rafael Palmeiro joined Detroit. Palmeiro, not in the Hall of Fame, was the best first baseman remaining, I guess, if you want to call it that. And so he joined Detroit. And then in right field, Dwight Evans had joined the league earlier, and now added to the right field in place of Ichiro is Shoeless Joe Jackson. Shoeless Joe was not able to be added before because at the time Payoff Pitch did not card any seasons prior to 1921. So Shoeless Joe didn't have a card that I could even use for him. However, with the new Legends and Bust set, now Shoeless Joe has a card, has been carded with that set. And so he's joined the league in place of Ichiro now that he has a spot. Again, very deserving here. I think he's the highest rated right fielder that was not in the league yet. And of course, Shoeless Joe not in the Hall of Fame, not eligible because of the whole scandal with the Black Sox. If we head over to the National League, really not as many changes in the National League than what we had in the American League, because you had, Dave Parker would have been one, and sadly for Dave Parker, being a right fielder, there is no spot for him in right field with any of the Hall of Fame teams. Los Angeles has Hank Aaron and Tony Gwynn. Houston has Chuck Klein and Roberto Clemente, and St. Louis has Dave Winfield and Larry Walker. And unfortunately for Dave Parker, he isn't better than any of these guys card wise, so he is not going to take any of their place. So he unfortunately does not join the league. He wasn't in it before. He continues to not be in the league, mostly because of that. Billy Wagner. So Billy Wagner was the closer for the Chicago Docs, and he is now playing for, oh, I got to find him here. St. Louis? Yeah, St. Louis. So Billy Wagner took the place of Rube Marquard, I believe, who was the lowest rated pitcher still in the league in the Hall of Fame, on the Hall of Fame teams. And so Rube Marquard leaves the league, and Billy Wagner takes his place on the St. Louis Wizards. They already have the Goose there closing, but that may switch with Billy Wagner here. Goose Gossage has actually blown some saves and that kind of stuff, so it'll be interesting to see how that works. Houston already has Bruce Sutter and Trevor Hoffman. Jesse Haynes would have been the other option for Billy Wagner replacing him. However, Houston already has two dominant closers, Hall of Fame closers, in Trevor Hoffman and Bruce Sutter. So Rube Marquard was the next bet there. So Billy Wagner leaves Chicago to join St. Louis, and that leaves an opening. And joining the Chicago Docs to fill that opening is Tug McGraw. So Tug McGraw, if we looked at relievers, National League relievers specifically, there were some options. There were some other options. I think like Papelbon was on there, but again, he's mostly, at least I think of him mostly with with Boston, for example. He had a split career, American National League. And so a lot of the pitchers had a split American League, National League career, whereas Tug McGraw played his entire career in the National League, and he was kind of next on the list. So that's why I chose him. And it's also fitting because Billy Wagner, as a lefty closer, is replaced by another lefty, another dominant lefty reliever in Tug McGraw. And in this case, it's Tug's 1980 season, which was a very dominant one for him. And so Chicago will have him closing games in place of Billy Wagner here in this league. All right, so that's a little recap of everything. If you want to follow the action in my Payoff Pitch League, you can head over to baseballmaelstrom.com to follow the action, and you can see the standings, the schedule. I do a little write-up on each game. The other project I have going on is Season Ticket Baseball. It's the best of the 1990s tournament, and it's the top 5 American and top 5 National League teams battling it out in a tournament to determine the best team of the 1990s. So you can follow that as well. All of that said, I'd love to hear your thoughts on any of this, thoughts on either the Hall of Fame voting, what you think about that, what you think of the players that were inducted or will be inducted, and maybe some that missed out. Love to hear that in the comments down below. And thank you so much for watching. Consider subscribing if you haven't already. And until next time, have a great evening.